all of the livestock industry is predominantly native-born Americans that grow cattle.
Yeah, that also use immigrant labor. Like, what are you talking? I'm trying
No,
to point out.
No, they don't.
I'm not trying to point out.
They don't.
Oh my God, I'm not trying to point out the the difference. Native-born Americans versus immigrants. I'm saying all of these people are workers. If there are more workers capable of working that contributed, all right, I have to mute you again because you are incapable of having a conversation. I don't know what it is with right-wingers where they have to constantly interrupt.
What's up, everybody? The last thing I thought of when I woke up this morning was I'll call a call-in show and debate a woke liberal. Actually, my plans were way different. I woke up, took a couple rips, took the dog for a walk. Then I kept taking advantage of this great weather we've had lately and getting all my outside stuff done. So I was hardly prepped or even in the right mindset. I was pretty ripped. But I thought, hey, why not? At least the guy's putting it out there and we can try to have a conversation about it. And I actually tried to take the friendliest approach about it I could and just say, hey, look, I'd say I'm a 90s liberal, but that has shifted so far over to the left that I can't keep up with that. Then after him cutting me off 3 times and completely interrupting and me allowing him to speak, on the 4th time, I talked over him just like he had been doing for me. So he big times me and puts me on mute, starts acting like he's internet dad here. Then he resorts to the ad hominems. Oh, these right-wing guys, they just can't take it when you interrupt them constantly and don't let them get more than a sentence out. Then, of course, when he's in a losing position in an argument, then he deflects, changes the subject. Then the second time he cut my mic, I was done. So it was a live stream of like 19 people. And of course, I didn't say anything about me having a channel. And if he had been anything close to fair about it, I'd shout out his YouTube handle. But you know what? If you're going to censor and silence me, then I'll do the same for you. So I had this set up where I was going to record myself, but the way I had it set up, there was a delay. And eventually I just went outside. When he consistently interrupts me, you can see me pacing back and forth, losing my patience. But, you know, I tried to come at him on friendly terms, and I'll just point out all the times he interrupted me first and then threw a fit because I interrupted him.
And, I kind of skipped your last little segment there, but earlier I was walking the dog, and you had brought up the American military.
What's your name?
What's that?
What's your name?
Static.
Static. All right, Static,
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
Oh, sorry, the delay is throwing me off.
You may want to mute the stream.
There, we did this. Okay, so earlier you had mentioned the military-industrial complex and the abuse of it for corporate use and everything.
That's correct.
Do you think that conservatives are in favor of that?
No, I think most people are not in favor of that.
Okay. I was just the way you had said it. It just.
Okay, cool.
It sounded like you thought that most conservatives thought that way.
Yeah, no, I don't believe that. I mean, maybe there's an old school Republican would think in those terms, but I just don't. Yeah, I don't think that most people agree with the military-industrial complex.
Right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I would consider myself. I just go by 90s liberal. I don't stick to big labels or anything, but that's what it meant to be a liberal back in the 90s. But the meaning of liberalism has just shifted so far left in the since then. So it's kind of hard for a lot of people. I'm older. I'm 50, and it's difficult for older people that came from that, I guess, Xers that came from that generation to just travel this far left with like you guys were talking about the trans issue and immigration. You support immigration?
Heck yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Not only that, I also believe that that's a very liberal trait to hold.
So I'm going to interject right here. He says that supporting people imports is a very liberal trait to have, but that's not what it meant back in the 90s. Even Bill and Hillary were against it. So this is one of those things that the goalpost has shifted, and it will shift again. It always does.
Immigration?
Heck yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Not only that, I also believe that that's a very liberal trait to hold.
Do you support high housing costs?
No. I'm a YIMBYist.
YIMBY, what's that?
Yes, in my backyard.
Yes, in your backyard. Gotcha. Okay, so...
The reason why housing costs have increased substantially, especially in left-wing controlled areas, is because they've allowed for there to be zoning laws, of highly restrictive zoning laws in combination of NIMBYs, where they say not in my backyard, which prevents people from being able to build houses and construct dwellings for people to live in. And that results in, well, I mean, obviously you have the problem of supply and demand, where if you don't have any supply, it just increases the cost of that product, considering the demand remains constant for shelter. So I think that we, like as a woke liberal, or myself as a woke liberal, I argue that we should have yes in my backyard, in combination of making conceded efforts to lower zoning laws and permits so that way more people can live.
Well, there's two different parts to that. I lived in some of the most expensive real estate places, Southern California, San Francisco, and there's not one blanket problem across the entire country, but in areas like that, it's the gentrification that drives up the housing costs in those areas.
It is true that if you say, for example, make it nicer to live in a specific place, then people tend to want to live there, which means that you have a type of gentrification, if you will. I agree with you. That is true. At the same time, I go, okay, well, maybe we should focus on building up all places.
Okay, well, that causes a cascading, snowballing effect, because all those people that, like everybody I knew there that grew up in San Francisco, all had to move over to West Oakland.
Yes. Well, again, you have to understand a lot of it is San Francisco is one of the most NIMBY and zoning protected places in the country. So it does not surprise me that the cost of housing is insanely high.
I remodeled and built houses there. I know.
Yeah.
And all the clients were exactly the same. They're wealthy people that didn't come from there.
Yeah.
And yes, they were from all over the world. But so the locals get displaced from San Francisco over to West Oakland. The people that grew up in West Oakland are now priced out there. They get displaced from there. And then it literally spreads all across the country. I'm out in Podunk nowhere now, and I'm fixing up houses for rich people that have moved from the high-cost coastal areas. So now, okay, so that's one issue. But then also you add in, 30 million new immigrants coming in?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think that all is affecting the housing cost?
Oh, it does.
Okay. And you're still in favor of immigration?
Yeah, I would have infrastructure projects that put immigrants to work where they can build houses under YIMBYism, which would enable more people to live their life as they see fit, and I'd have a big booming economy.
Okay, but who's going to pay for the immigrants to build those houses? We
do it.
Okay.
Because when we invest in our communities, everybody benefits.
On top of our high housing costs, now we pay more taxes to give them work?
No, you could actually lower the cost of housing.
Artificially or what? You just
with YIMBYism. You build more houses.
Okay, but while that's being done, the people that own houses have already paid more for their housing due to this effect that's already happened. Now we're paying more taxes in order to build those new houses.
No, you don't pay more taxes. You just have an infrastructure project. And what actually ends up being...
So the money just comes from nowhere.
Hold on. And so what you end up doing is when you have more properties being built, that actually increases tax revenue generated for the city.
Okay, but
because you have more houses.
No, slow down. You just brought a bunch of new people in and gave them jobs. They didn't bring anything extra to the economy. They're now suffering.
No, they do bring extra to the economy. There's so many economics papers that show that immigrants do contribute positively to the economy. We know this for a fact.
No, hold on. This is simple logic here. If you've got 10 people, okay, and between the 10 people, they've got $100.
Yeah.
And then you throw one more person in there, and all of those people have to support that one person. Well, there's still only $100 between 11 people now instead of 10. Okay. And 10 of those people are paying for the 11th guy. You didn't add anything to the economy.
You realize that the economy isn't, the money is just a tool. The money doesn't actually improve the quality of life in and of itself. What provides a quality of life is material conditions that are created, and money is used as a medium of exchange for those products.
Okay, that's a fancy way of describing.
No, that's not a fancy way of describing it. It's what it is, right? Money in and of itself is worthless. If you're sitting there in in the middle of an island somewhere, and you have, shut up. Just listen for a second.
You've been talking over me the whole fucking time.
No, I've been hearing you out. I just need you to listen. I'm trying to explain myself. I'm trying to explain myself.
Just like I'm doing to you right now.
Holy shit.
Go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
I have no idea what it is with right-wingers and their complete incapability of having a conversation. They have to go into like meta every single time.
It's because you fucking...
All right, so here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to mute you. Nobody can hear you, okay? And I'm going to have a calm conversation. We can have a calm conversation. It doesn't have to be all this vitriol. We could just discuss between one another, okay? I have you muted. Nobody can hear you, okay? So money in and of itself isn't actually the value product. It's people's trust in the money in and of itself, where they think that it is worth something, and they trade value products and services for that money. A good example would be if I put you on a private island somewhere where there's no shops or anything. It's just an empty island, and I gave you $100 million stranded. Obviously, it wouldn't do you much good. If anything, it would only be useful as kindling. And so what I would want is there be more output of products and services which improve people's lives, which makes products cheaper and more accessible. All right? And having more workers would improve that. Okay? I'm going to unmute you now. Go ahead.
Okay, now I'm going to mute you, and we're going to have a nice, calm conversation. I mean, real calm. It's the next morning, 6:30. Just had a bong rip because all me and Ruckus got to do is paint a couple walls outside. If he had known that I had 80,000 subs, he might not have muted me after constantly interrupting me. So guess what, Big Shot? My side of this is going to be seen by more people in the first 30 minutes than yours did all day. You're going to big shot me, put me on mute, and act like you're internet dad. Okay. So his argument here is that the 30 million noobs we brought in aren't affecting the cost of housing. And I just pulled that one out of my hat. Had I prepped a little bit, then I would have included housing, food, all commodities. He even brought up supply and demand when talking about gentrification, but maintains that the new 30 million people aren't creating more demand as the supply stays the same. Then when he can't make his case, he changes the subject to fiat currency. Now, he muted me twice, and I walked away before I could make my full point, but like I said, there's two sides to this. First, let's talk about what's going on in high-demand zip codes. I'm sure he would say, like Google, that the gentrification is due to young white kids moving into these cities. Dude, do you really think that 20-year-olds are coming in and buying houses in the highest real estate market in America and then sinking another 3-4 million into them, renovating them to the nines? What money? That magic wand money you keep speaking of? Dude, these 20-year-olds are moving there and living 20 deep in a house. I lived there. They're paying $1,500 to sleep on a couch. They're not the ones buying up $5 million houses that are 100 years old and then modernizing them. Most trust fund babies don't even have that kind of money because the older generation was smart enough to put them on a dole. So they get a couple $100,000 checks every month. And I've seen them sitting on the desk. I worked for these people. And in my 3 years in the Bay Area, there was only one house that was a 20-year-old that mommy and daddy had bought her. And she was so insufferable, she called us out to change a light bulb one time. I'm not kidding. A construction company to change a light bulb. But look, that is not who's buying up all of the high-end market. It is wealthy older people that have already made their fortune, of course. And having worked for them, I can tell you at least 60 to 70% are from foreign countries. So all they ever want to talk about is the non-papered, but hey, let's talk about the papered too. These multimillionaires didn't jump any fences. And from 2010 to 2023, California allowed in about 500,000. And these are high in the top of the food chain. And this is what is driving up the high-end cost of living in high-demand areas. And we'll talk about that cascading effect that has across the country here in a second. But he just says, Yumby, supply and demand. What did he say? We should just build up in all places. Okay, dude, where? In these high demand areas, we got to focus on one thing at a time, not just throw everything in a washing bag and then default to, well, money isn't real anyway. Dude, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't produce more land, and everything's full already. Everything but preserved land is packed here. There's nowhere else to build. The same thing for all of coastal California, and hadn't been to the East Coast, but I'm sure it's the exact same way. In the really nice places like Orange County, where I lived for 15 years, it's all hemmed in by a coastal mountain range. And these are the houses I worked on the majority of the time, right on the beach, just absolute paradise. Too expensive for me, though. Pretty much too expensive for all working class people, because every morning and evening, there are about 500,000 people that come across Ortega Highway, a twisty mountain 2-lane road, to work for the rich people in coastal Orange County, because the housing that they can afford is a mountain range away in a less desirable area. It's like 110 degrees every day all summer. Probably 3/4 of them are of Mexican ancestry, and they have no problems having big families. They have plenty of babies. We don't need more babies. Now, I'm still talking about one specific area at a time. It's not like that across the country. But he says if you make it nice, then people will want to live there. And that the high cost of housing is due to zoning laws. And his solution is to add more people to this mix. Look, the people that have made it nice here aren't Miguel and Rosa that had just came in and we gave them a free house and a job. And we don't need another Miguel and Rosa to come over here and work, because we've already got millions of them literally over in the IE that do this. So this has caused a cascading effect, and for this, I'm talking the entirety of both coasts, to where working class kids that grew up in Orange County have now had to move over to the Inland Empire to afford a house. So now houses over there are worth $400,000 to $500,000. Houses that people bought in the 70s for 30, 40 grand. So now the people that live there can sell their house, cash out with a cool $500,000, and then they can move into the interior of the country, buy a better house for $100,000, have $400,000 in the bank, and get a job at McDonald's just to stay busy. And now they have driven up the costs in those areas, making it hard on the people that grew up there. Now, I explained this very simply, and he understands the concept, and his reply was, yeah, F them, F everybody. I don't care that this has already affected 3 generations of people. We're going to exacerbate the problem and bring more people in. And then when I brought up the fact that, okay, now everybody is already paid more for their housing and every other commodity out there, it's not just housing. 30 million people have increased the price of food, and now people are going to have to pay more in taxes to accommodate new people. And he says, no, money's not real. Yeah, dude, I've understood the concept of fiat currency longer than you've been alive. But the brass tacks of the matter is that we are using that currency to buy these houses and everything else. Therefore, it does have value. And I see that I shouldn't have used money as an example because he took it off in another direction. Well, if you drop people off on an island with $100 million, it doesn't do them much good, does it? This is not contingent on currency. This goes for anything. If you have 10 people and 10 hamburgers, then you add another person to that mix that didn't bring their own hamburger, then you've got 10 hamburgers for 11 people, and it is a net loss. Now everybody's overall cut of things is less, and there's no way you can gray lawyer yourself around this. But he's saying you can just wave a magic wand and that new person will automatically go build a house because that's what we want them to do. And then we'll just magic money into existence to pay for the materials for that house. And none of this will negatively affect the economy. And everything that I just explained about how on the coast, there's nowhere left to do that. And he says, there are many papers explaining how they're a net positive. It's a fact. End of discussion. I'm going to mute you. You know, that is the perfect metaphor for the entire movement of yours is if you can't win an argument, then you silence the other person. It's happening every day still. So he admits that gentrification is happening. That's one of the negative effects of the high-end people moving here from all around the world. He admits that this cascading effect has taken place all across the country, and he just says, yeah, screw him, it doesn't bother me. He says yes in my backyard, but this is very much no in my backyard. But I got a feeling come Monday morning, he'll still be playing video games, if you know what I mean.
I have no idea what it is with right-wingers and their complete incapability of having a conversation. They have to go into, like, meta every single time.
It's because you fucking...
All right, so here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to mute you. Nobody can hear you, okay? And I'm going to have a calm conversation. We can have a calm conversation. It doesn't have to be all this vitriol. We could just discuss between one another, okay? I have you muted. Nobody can hear you, okay? So money in and of itself isn't actually the value product. It's people's trust in the money in and of itself, where they think that it is worth something, and they trade value products and services for that money. A good example would be if I put you on a private island somewhere where there's no shops or anything. It's just an empty island, and I gave you $100 million stranded. Obviously, it wouldn't do you much good. If anything, it would only be useful as kindling. And so what I would want is there be more output of products and services which improve people's lives, which makes products cheaper and more accessible. All right? And having more workers would improve that. Okay? I'm going to unmute you now. Go ahead.
Okay. The point I was trying to make here is that, yes, there is a concept of money. It's a dumb fractional reserve system. But you can take that money and you can go to the grocery store and you can buy food. You can't go to the grocery store and tell them money is just a concept, so I want my groceries. Money has value when it buys you things that you need.
So again, if there's, for example, my example is, if there's, say, no farmers providing food, then it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Okay, but there are farmers providing food, and they get paid for their effort.
Do you think immigrants might have something to do with that?
What's that?
Do you think immigrants have something to do with producing food?
We're changing ballparks here.
No,
dude.
I'm just saying. Do you believe that immigrants help in producing food in the United States?
Areas, yes. In some areas, yes.
No, not some areas. A lot of areas.
Bullshit,
like all the freaking time. In fact,
hold on.
In fact, go to any farm where things are picked by hand or work is being done. It's exclusively immigrants.
And picked food is the only food market out there?
And picked food is the only food market out there.
You know, all of the livestock industry is predominantly native-born Americans that grow cattle.
Yeah, that also use immigrant labor. Like, what are you talking? I'm trying to point out.
No, they don't.
I'm not trying to point out.
They don't.
Oh my God, I'm not trying to point out the difference. Native-born Americans versus immigrants. I'm saying all of these people are workers. If there are more workers capable of working that contribute... All right, I have to mute you again because you are incapable of having a conversation. I don't know what it is with right-wingers where they have to constantly...
Okay, I don't know what it is about these libertardes that if they can't win an argument, then they just want to silence you. And change the subject like he was trying to do here. I was trying to draw him back into the original argument. You think that all of the noobs aren't causing an increase in housing and commodities costs. Now we're talking about fruit pickers. First off, you guys remember all of the motels and the $1 billion that Brandon Johnson spent on housing these people in 1 year in Chicago, and they did it in New York as well. Well, that no longer exists. They've erased all the photos of all of that happening. Well, he's going to ignore all that and act like we wouldn't have food if it wasn't for these noobs. I would say maybe 1 to 5% of them have anything to do with the food industry. And what he's referring to is this little area right here, because that's what he's trained to do. These are canned ham responses. Yes, California, your side has built an ecosystem to where you are reliant on these people coming in and picking the vegetables there. The entire rest of the country is able to do that without any outside help. The entire Midwest is full of farmers with anywhere from 10 to 1,000 head of cattle. It's all small family businesses. Dairy, all small family businesses. This also goes for pig and poultry. All of our staples, corn, soybean, grain, wheat. One family owns thousands of acres and they go out there and do all of the work themselves year after year, and they've been doing it for generations. Somehow they have managed to modernize and keep up with supply and demand and technology and everything, while California couldn't. They still have to bring people in. But they like to ignore the 95% of ag land all across America and just focus on Napa Valley because that's what they know. God forbid they ever had to drive through one of the flyover states and they'd see that, yeah, there are millions of independent families that contribute to our food chain. And like I said, we are completely off subject at this point. I wasn't even trying to go here. And once again, he big shots me and mutes me. Very typical of his lot, won't accept any basic facts. When I tell him that, he just said, nope, they're all noobs. Yeah, I know that's what Miss Steve taught you in your diversity class, but it ain't the way the real world works, big shot. Once again, you're ignoring the strain that this has put on big cities across the country, acting like you're going to wave a magic wand and they're just going to pick fruit and build houses because that's what you say they should be doing. Yeah, well, what about these millions of people that are now taking up? We've already covered the gentrification, the high end, and how that cascades down. Now we've got 30 million low-income people here, and they're taking up all the low-income housing, only they're not even paying for it. The government is. And the majority of them are not working doing anything instead of your magic wand picking fruit and building houses. And I guess you're just magic wanding all the materials into existence too, and nobody has to pay for any of that. Dude, just keep playing your video games. That's about all you're qualified to do here. And to be perfectly honest, this is why I think only maybe 5 to 10% of the population should even be allowed to vote. You should have to take a very difficult test before being allowed. Because the way that they've ran all of these blue areas completely into the ground is because of low info, high smug people like you. And I'm being sincere about this. I don't even think I should be allowed to vote. Because I'm not willing to dedicate the time to thoroughly understanding these issues like they should be. And the major issues they bring up, thanks to the internet mentality, are all just a distraction from the real issues where they're really effing us over. Case in point, this guy argued about bathrooms for 30 minutes before I called in. What an absolute waste of time and brain power. So good luck to you, sir. Static out.